Hey everyone, today we're going to be taking a look at the new clip point and brown paper micarta versions of the Landers 2 and 3. I'm going to go ahead and get this open here. Now, if you've already seen lots of information on the Lander series, don't worry. At first here, I'm just going to do a very quick run through of the new changes and upgrades with these versions. But if you're also new to the Lander series, and this is one of the first videos you're seeing, I'm also going to go pretty in-depth later on in the video into what makes these knives so great. So first off in my hand here is the Lander 2, and immediately you're going to see that awesome new clip point blade. I'm going to bring in the Lander 3 here next to it. You can see that the handle, even though they are the same material, you'll see that they have slightly different color and different pattern to them. That is because with them being paper micarta, every single piece is going to be unique because it is made with organic material layered with resin. I think it looks really cool. It almost looks like stone. And as it ages and as your skin oils get into it, it will kind of patina of its own, get a little bit darker and change color. So I think that's really cool. But it's super, super smooth. It does not feel like a piece of paper if you're worried about that at all. It doesn't have that kind of almost rough texture to it. It does really just kind of feel like a plastic because of that resin, but it is incredibly lightweight. I will go ahead and actually bring in a scale to show you. Let's see here. Okay, for the Lander 3, we are looking at under 2.5 ounces. On the Lander 2, it's at about 2.65, when in comparison, the original versions of the Lander 2 is almost at 3 ounces. And the Lander 3 is at about 2.7. So you can see, even though they are the same knife, that material really does lighten the load. So that's pretty cool. Next, I'll go ahead and get some more specs out of the way. For the Lander 3 here, you're looking at right at about 2.5 inches of cutting edge and just over 6.25 inches of overall length. And then the 2, you are getting about 3.25 of cutting edge. So that's pretty cool. Again, immediately just getting some comparisons out of the way. Here's the original Lander 2. You can see the difference in blade shape there. You can see it's pretty much the exact same size. And then with the Lander 3, the exact same boat. Now, some differences that you get between these is you can see on the 2, you do get this middle body screw, when on the 3 you do not, because it is a smaller platform. On the 2, you also have nested liners, because there's more surface area for them to be able to get away with doing that. On the 3 here, since it is smaller, you do not get those nested liners, but they did give them this nice little gold accent that matches that new thumb stud color on this colorway, which I think looks really, really nice. On the 2, you do get jimping along the spine. With the 3, you do not. But other than that, these two are going to be pretty much identical, just slimmed down. You can see they do have the same deep carry pocket clip and the same filler tab for it on the other side, so this is reversible. And with it being running on Kaiser's clutch lock, which is a crossbar lock and dual thumb studs, these are fully ambidextrous, so you can just switch that clip over, and it works just the same if you are a righty or a lefty, which I do love to see. These are still running in S35VN, which gives excellent corrosion resistance and is still one of the best EDC knife steels in my opinion. Very well-rounded, not sacrificing too much edge retention or toughness, so you should get great performance out of these. And then on those blades, you do have kind of a two-tone look to it, with that satin on the grinds and kind of a tumbled stone wash on the flats. Now with that out of the way, that is pretty much all of the highlights and info on these. Now, to the section of the video where I said if you've never seen anything on the Lander, I wanted to kind of give you some extra information. So the evolution of the Lander started all here with the Lander 1. It was a liner lock, as you can see. With the 2, they made it bigger and they upgraded the steel from D2 to S35VN. And then they gave you that crossbar lock that I'll go more into here in a bit. And then with the 3, they took all of those upgrades from the 2 and then just shrunk it down to the original size. So it might seem a little bit weird getting bigger and then smaller, but that's the evolution of it here. And you can also see those little grooves there in the handle. Those are meant to just allow you to have easier access to those thumb studs for deployment. So that being said, I've talked a lot about the Kaiser clutch lock, but I haven't really told you why it's awesome. So these do run on ceramic bearings, so incredibly smooth, crazy drop shutty, and super fidgety. Like, it is one of the best feeling actions I've ever felt, and I'm not playing that up. Now, a really cool feature, I'm going to try and get some additional close-up footage of this to show you, is whenever you take these apart, on that clutch lock, how it's designed is that you can adjust the spring tension without having to fully disassemble the knife, which is really, really cool. So as you can see, there are those 5 different spots in there where that Omega spring can lock in. So on each side, you have 5 different tension modes. So that can adjust how much force is needed to open and close the knife, which is really cool. It's almost like making your own detent. And while I'm not sure if you would, you can adjust it differently on each side. So technically, there's like 25 different combinations of how you can make your detent, which is pretty cool. So Kaiser calls that their Gemini spring system because it is 2 twin springs that can be adjusted independently. So that's pretty cool. Next up is their what Kaiser calls the DED, or D-shaped easy disassembly system. That is the other part of the clutch lock. And what that means is that at the pivot, there is that D cutout. So you can crank down these pivots pretty much as hard as you want, and it's not going to mess with your centering at all. So I know a lot of us in the knife community are kind of particular about our centering. So if you ever have to do maintenance on your knife, which is super easy on this model, if you put it back together, you shouldn't have to worry about messing up your centering. And every single one that I have ever got from them is perfectly centered. So it's one of those things where I'm just really blown away by it. And this is like their proprietary system. So I know why other people aren't doing it. But as soon as it was made, it was one of those things where I was just like, oh, yeah, they should all be like that now. So if you didn't have any of this information, I just kind of wanted to share that with you on why I think the Kaiser clutch lock is kind of like the best Omega spring crossbar lock on the market at the moment. And all of this is just made even better by the fact that Ben designed these knives to have a quick swap scale feature. So like with the clutch lock, how you don't have to fully disassemble to adjust your spring tension, you don't have to fully disassemble to change your scales, which is really cool. So you just have to take off these exterior screws and it pops off, but the whole body has interior screws that holds everything together, which is really, really cool. You don't have to be super careful with taking it apart and worrying about the whole thing just kind of exploding on your table. So you just have to take off these body screws and then you can slap on new scales or just clean these off if you were wanting to do some maintenance without worrying about messing up your knife, which I think is awesome. He's also made the files for these scales completely open source, so you can go find those and 3D print your own or have your own machined out of whatever material you want. So that's just crazy cool, super thoughtful, and it's one of those things where you can tell he just really cares about knife enthusiasts and the community and doesn't want there to really be any gatekeeping whenever it comes to working on your knives. And I love that. So thank you for sticking with me. I know this has been quite a long video, but there's just a lot going on behind the scenes on this knife. And I feel like I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't shine a spotlight on all those cool features. But as always, if you want to see even more information on these, in case I missed anything, there's always links in the description box below that will take you on over to gpknives.com. There you can even pick one up for yourself. But before you head over there, don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay sharp.